All right, everyone, welcome to Informed Dissent, a podcast that brings you dispatches from the culture wars. I'm Ben Appel. I'm here with Eliza Mondegreen, Corey Cohn, and Jamie Reed. Um, we're going to be talking about a debate that occurred last night at Middlebury College between Leor Sapir and Brianna Wu. But before we get to that, we're just going to go over a couple news things. Big news out of Canvas. What happened, Jamie?
Kansas is now yet another state that has restricted puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries in minors. This finally passed. There was yet another veto by the Democratic governor, and the legislature was able to override the veto, and it is now law.
Okay.
Good job.
Thank you.
So something interesting, the I want to ask you about the Washington Post, their article about it, it has all the usual misinformation about, oh, puberty blocker, like all the qualifiers. Puberty blockers are perfect, reversible, and mo majority of kids don't get them, and da 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 da. I mean, all of this propaganda. But
Yes.
it said in the piece, and I just read this. It said that the bill also prohibits the use of state funds for psychological treatment for transgender children. Now, I've looked at the bill and I'm reading the relevant parts, and nowhere does it say that. So I don't understand if that was argued on the floor or if that was argued, but I do not see that anywhere in the bill that it denies trans-identified children state funds for psychological treatment. It's specifically state funds for treatments that are, known as gender affirming care, which not a part, the medicine and surgeries.
So, what was debated or discussed in testimony before this went out of committee was that there are elements in this bill that do address what employees like teachers can do regarding social transitions and who they can refer people to. So I think maybe what they're getting at is you can't have like a teacher refer to an affirming gender center if somebody is expressing gender related distress.
Okay. Well,
And
yeah,
there
I mean,
were
it
a
says,
number of teachers that testified saying this was going to make it so they could not socially transition children in their classroom, which
they sh
boo-hoo, they shouldn't be doing that anyway.
right.
Right.
But I think I want to be, I don't, I think that that was actually com totally misleading. I think that that was not correct in what was written in this. It does talk about social transitioning. It does say, except to the extent required by the First Amendment, da 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 da, no facility or building, state property shall be used to promote or advocate the use of social transitioning, medication, or surgery. But prior to that, it says a recipient of state funds shall not use state such funds to provide or subsidize medication or surgery as provided in Section 3 and amendments thereto as a treatment for a child's perception of gender or sex that is inconsistent with such child's sex. It cannot subsidize the treatment. Now, it does say an individual or entity that receives state funds to pay for or subsidize the treatment of children for psychological conditions, including gender dysphoria, shall not prescribe, dispense, or administer medication or perform surgery as provided in Section 3. It says nothing about denying psychological care. It says that for kids that have psychological conditions, including gender dysphoria, you cannot prescribe them hormones and puberty blockers.
Right, but they are following this misleading tact because what people say in many of these states is they try to pretend then that this means children cannot go see a therapist for
Exactly. They pretend that gender
yeah,
affirming care is actually like psychotherapy, like,
right.
right.
But it's not. I
No.
mean,
It's
no, and
affirmation
right, but we
in a
also
delusion.
I don't want us sending children to a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a family counselor who's going to have them come in and say, "Oh, you're trans. Yes, you're trans." And then they're going to wallow in the sadness that they now can't get puberty blockers,
Mhm.
cross-sex or surgery. That's not mental health care either.
Right.
So, but yeah,
But the point is that the state funds are not being denied these kids. They're
correct.
not for psychological, they're not denied therapy. They're not denied mental health therapy.
Correct.
That's insane.
Yes.
Okay. So that's ridiculous. And that's just crazy.
So that was our state of Kansas.
Yeah.
And now we also had a little bit of a issue in Colorado where Colorado's just been having a ton of bills be put forward on both sides. So there were two D-trans bills that were put forward, a D-trans essentially Bill of Rights that would give private cause of action for longer term people to who believed that they had suffered med mal could sue
Hmm.
longer, but also that insurance companies could also follow up if they had a provider who was being kind of negligent. Those both died in committee, but then also the Democrats have put forward some bills, including a law about not being able to dead name dead people.
Right. Well, right. And so the D-Trans Bill of Rights that was vetoed that was they shot that down. Democrats voted to kill it. The dead naming, but there's a dead naming for dead people. There's no dead naming for dead people, but there's also no a bill being proposed by I think Lorena Garcia, a Democratic representative, who was the one that seconded the motion to kill the bill for the D-Trans Bill of Rights. Um, uh, that it would be a violation of the law to dead name or misgender someone like with malice
Hmm.
alive. So it's not just about, there's another legislation that's being proposed about dead naming dead people, but Garcia is proposing a bill that would make it a violation of the law to, in her explanation in this reporting had said something like, if I'm transgender and I'm telling you this is my name, and you're saying over and over again, no, no, I'm not going to say that. No, this is a, then we have a problem. And so that is also proposed. So it's about having a death certificate match the gender identity of the person is one legislation is the declared gendered identity, and then also dead naming an alive person is a lawbreaker, rule breaker.
So are there any states
And that
that
you could,
have this as a law?
I don't know if there are any. Are there? Maybe our listeners know. Maybe they'll say in the comments if there are any laws but this is obviously a
I,
violation of the First Amendment. So I don't know how that could possibly stand. I mean, it's completely not that we don't have laws and practices and policies in this country that are a violation of the First Amendment, especially in schools, but that would violate that specifically. So it would be writing into law something that goes against the First Amendment, which would be weird.
That's what the Supreme
yeah.
Court is for, is to making those determinations.
Right.
And there are some EU countries that have passed misgendering and dead naming laws. I think Germany, Sweden, maybe some others. But in Colorado, the proposal was $1,000 fine or like 12 days in jail.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, in my tweet, I said send me to jail
Hmm.
for 12
Hmm.
days. Yeah.
Hmm.
I-
Yeah, class
Maybe
two. I
J.K.
guess that's
Rowling
the
would go too.
punishment for class two because it said class two, the class two misdemeanor for dead naming dead people, um, on the death certificate. But I guess a class two misdemeanor is that it leads to a possibility of 12 days in jail.
So Ben, when we were talking about this a little bit ahead of time, I think that you brought up a really important point, which is that this also has impacts. If something like that were to pass, this has really serious impacts on family members. So,
Mhm.
you had mentioned that if we had a minor who, a female who died and wanted or in somehow was putting forth a trans identity that they identified as male or non-binary, like who controls the reality of that death certificate? What does that say?
Well, yeah, I mean, so and I don't know if there would be a stipulation in the bill about minors, and about age, like let's say God forbid a minor does pass
Mhm.
and the parent or legal guardian is in control of writing the death certificate. But what I was speculating about was, okay, well, even if they were 18, let's say someone, God forbid, loses their child, and their child said, "Oh, I hate you, and I'm a tree, and you have to call me oak, and my pronouns are leaf branch." And then the child dies, and the parent has this death certificate, and by law, they're not allowed to put on the death certificate the actual name of their child, or the actual sex of their child, but have to write tree and oak, or whatever I just said. So, as far as I know, that's something that would come up, and I think that that would be a big issue, a possible issue, a potential issue that I hope would not have to happen, but it's something that lawmakers have to consider. Oh, you're pensive right now, Jamie. What are you thinking?
I'm just thinking of longer term issues. So if you have a birth certificate that says one sex on it, then you have life documents, driver's license, passports, etc., that have others and different names, and then you have a death certificate. I can just see bureaucracy um, falling apart. So then if there's a life insurance policy, how do you prove
Right.
that you can claim the life insurance, that this person is actually the person who's now dead? I mean, it just seems like these are, in some ways, looking to create laws to solve a non-existent problem. I think that the issue should just be that we have a reality of biological sex. It should be on our documents. I think the better question that we should be having as a society is, do we need a sex marker at all on a passport? Do we need a sex marker on a driver's license? I'd be much more interested in having that conversation than whether or not we should lie on these
Mhm.
and be having them not match. And then just the other small tidbit from my own life is my ex um, detransitioned, was able to go and reclaim her birth name, but the judge would not give her back the ability to have her sex marker recognized again on her driver's license.
Why?
So in Missouri, you used to need a doctor to sign a form to change your sex marker on your driver's license, that to claim a trans identity. There's not a form in existence to reclaim your birth sex. So now she has to open a court case and go plead in front of a judge to have her biological sex recognized again on her driver's license.
Wow.
So I, we've just created a bureaucratic mess all
Yeah.
over the place.
It is. It's the downwind of what happens when you deny a material reality, and you try to put the denial of material reality into law and policy. It's just, this is what happens.
Yeah.
Society falls apart. I mean, what
There's
else can you say?
I would love to find maybe we can find the link, but I have a friend in Israel, Akiva, another detransitioner. She has dual citizenship and a United States passport and an Israeli passport. Well, her United States passport recognizes her biological sex as female. Her Israeli passport does not. She was able to quickly get it changed when she was expressing a trans identity. She has had to open
Mhm.
an entire court case that's going to, in front of like a whole hearing over whether or not they're going to acknowledge her biological sex. And she might be, in essence, stuck in Israel because her passports don't match.
Hmm.
Right, because she has to enter the US on a US passport. And you can't have a flight itinerary in two different names.
No, I don't think you can. But
Hmm.
yeah,
All right.
we have no pathway back.
I think someone's buzzing my apartment. Hopefully you can't hear that. Anyway, let's go about the debate, because there's a lot to discuss there. Yeah? What do you think?
Yes.
Okay. So last night, Brianna Wu, and Leor Sapir Leor, one of my favorite people, who, if it were up to me, if I were in charge, I did text Leor this, but I do firmly believe if I were in charge, I would throw all the Pulitzers at that person. He, in a just world where journalistic integrity was actually, he would get them all because of the work that he does and how much he knows about these issues, how knowledgeable he is. He's just a wealth of information, and he's very, very good at his job, right? Am I right? I think that Leor's just a brilliant
He's
guy.
very,
So
very patient.
shout
More
out to
patient
Leor.
than
You don't agree, Corey?
else.
No?
I just hate these sort of panel shows where everybody agrees. So I'm just being a
Oh, okay, got it. Good. Okay, good. Okay. So they debated last night in Middlebury College in Vermont, and a very liberal college, right? Am I right about that? So at a student center there, they had a debate about what should be the proper policy for gender affirming care. I think that was the title of it, or something like that. Let me see. Uh, what was the question that they were debating? What is the right public policy approach to transgender medicine? So, Brianna Wu, a lot of our listeners will be familiar, ran for Congress in 2020, transitioned as an adult, co-host a podcast. I think co-founded a progressive super PAC, I believe, but works in Democratic politics as a
Mhm.
Democrat. And then, so they debated this. Interestingly, they've debated this last night in front of a studio audience, students, non-binary students. A trombonist showed up and tried to interrupt Leor. But anyway, set us off, Eliza. Like, what was your reaction, and what are your thoughts about it?
Um, well, I was trying to like multitask yesterday because I'd been on the phone all day, and I was listening to the debate and also trying to like do yoga, but also stopping about every 2 minutes to like furiously text you guys about. So that's the image that, and the kind of state of mind that I was in. Um, I Very hard to find someone as patient as Leor Sapir in the world, probably. Um, I mean, I was proud of the kids who did show up and disagreed without playing harmonicas and blasting trombones, even if I thought that their questions were really dumb. Like they did listen the whole time. They waited until the question time. They asked some questions. Um, that seemed to me really positive because when I was a student at McGill University, there was an attempt to have a talk about, what do you do when there's a conflict in human rights law about between sex and gender-based definitions of what a woman is. That was just 2 years ago, and that got shut down by a mob, and the few of us tried to attend got like actually manhandled. So I was really impressed that this went forward and people kind of treated it at least somewhat normally for the most part.
I think Lisa
But
made that point in her broad view. That's a good point. Kudos to them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
to Middlebury for
yeah,
hosting
I really
that.
think so. And to
And to
Middlebury for
Brianna
hosting it, and the
for
guy who
doing,
introduced the
yeah,
talk, and
absolutely.
to Brianna for talking.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, and I was impressed with the guy who introduced the talk and was just like, I know that this will be controversial, and so I'm going to say a little bit more about why we're doing this than usual. But I think it's really important to talk about. Like that is just a sign of how much things have changed.
Absolutely. Corey, did you see it?
I watched the first hour.
Okay. What were your thoughts?
That was probably enough.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's not fair for me to share my thoughts on only the debate because really all this debate was just an instance of a much larger debate. This isn't the first time these two people have shown up or even had this conversation because this is just a replay of something that's been happening on Twitter.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about
That's true.
let's kind of recap about what, for listeners that didn't see it, how this went. So they started on a couch. He introduces them, a gentleman. I'm not sure his name, but he was a very good interlocutor there, or interviewer, whatever the word is. And they're sitting on a couch. Brianna has like a 5 minute open, asks Brianna about her history. Brianna immediately goes into like, oh, I was wanted to kill myself at 4 or 5, and I hated my
Mhm.
body, and et cetera, et cetera. Goes into that whole thing, and then I became an addict, and then when I was an adult, I was able to transition, and it saved my life, and this is life saving, life saving, life saving. I mean, over and over again, like I would die if I didn't have this. I would die if I didn't have this. I think she said that numerous times during the talk.
Yeah.
Um, and so then after this introduction, Leor said, well, I'm going to stand up. I have a deck, prepared. So I'm going to go to the podium and I'm going to put this PowerPoint on, and then had a really, really effective and thorough and succinct PowerPoint about, and he started with, how did we get here? How did
Mhm.
what we call gender affirming care get so off the rails in the States? And so he went back and he talked about how it began with the Dutch Protocol, and all of the developments that have happened in Europe with Finland and Sweden and the UK and Denmark and even France, and all these countries rolling back these policies after looking at systematic evidence reviews and finding that all of the evidence supporting the efficacy of these treatments is really low quality. So we just do not know. And Leor was said that over and over again in terms of detrans rates, in terms of their data was not being taken. We do not know. So we do not know if it's helping. We do not know if it's harming. Now we can see evidence of harm, and arguably we could see evidence of some people benefiting, perhaps, especially adults. But in terms of kids, there's a lot of evidence of harm. And we also just don't know. So the ethical thing is what European countries have done, which is, oh my gosh, you don't give healthy bodies drugs that are potentially making them very sick and very ill and worse and depressed and suicidal. This is not something we do. First, do no harm. We're going to discontinue these practices. This is insane. US comes to US, it's the opposite. Activism is very involved, heavily involved, the decentralized healthcare system, the for-profit healthcare system, but just all of these NGOs and groups that are very influential in politics and that have a lot of power. And so it comes here and it
Mhm.
becomes, you must affirm, must affirm, must affirm. It doesn't have which arguably were not good. I mean, the Dutch Protocol, I disagree with the whole practice of it. It's insane, and it's been, interrogated a lot by folks, but it did not have the same safeguards that were put in place for the original Dutch Protocol, and so kids would just be affirmed, socially transitioned, and then, it eventually became just a human rights issue of a kid or a young person or whoever must be allowed to commence with at least social transition, but then also these medications, because if they do not, they will kill themselves. And so that became the narrative, and that essentially became gender affirming
Mhm.
care. But he went into to where that began. So, and I'll say this and then I'll throw it out here. He's talking for a while and he's going through all of this stuff and he's presenting all of this evidence. He's talking about, what does gender even mean? He's talking, and that was a very succinct description, and we can talk about that. But he's going into all this, and then he gets to the part where he says, we're talking about boys, and then, a lot of these, we look at the desistance literature, and then it's like 80% of these kids desist, and they grow up, and then the majority of those kids end up being gay. So, and this is when Brianna jumps in. Brianna said, I only spoke for 5 minutes, and you have like 40 minutes. So can we talk? We
Mhm.
start to, and to me, that's one of the most frustrating things about Brianna Wu is that obfuscation, obfuscation after obfuscation after obfuscation. To me, Brianna is a politician through and through. And so when facts and points that they cannot argue with, let's
Mhm.
divert. Let's because there's no argument or no sound logical argument for that. She's getting beaten. And then it's what she also does is throughout is concede points that she's doubled down on and said, no, this is how it said, oh, puberty blockers. No, I don't even need, they never even need puberty blockers. What are you talking about? And Leo's like, well, then what are we talking? That's the main argument. And it's like, you just had a
Right.
screenshot. You just tweeted to Richard Hanania, who said online, oh, wow, Hunter Schafer. Now that's a woman, transgender Hunter Schafer. And Brianna responds, oh, if you like that, you should support puberty blockers for kids, meaning for boys, so they can be they can properly pass as perhaps pass as a female in adulthood. I mean, this is insane. So just the doubling down, going back, double speak, dodging all over the place and saying, "Oh, I actually agree." The gaslighting. It's very manipulative and it's a politician style and
Yeah.
it's I don't respect it and I don't respect Brianna for that specifically. I just don't. I don't trust what Brianna talks about. It makes me not trust Brianna's history. I think that what Brianna talks about having gone through in terms of the turmoil experiencing at 4 or 5 and her first memory being me wanting to kill myself and I tried to electrocute myself in an electric socket. Okay, that's horrible. And if you went through that, but because of all your obfuscation and the way that you're so dishonest with the way you talk about things, I don't believe it. And that's not on me, that's
Yeah.
on you. What do you guys think?
Well, and there's just so much of this kind of historical rewriting for adult males in particular who transition to like go back and say like, well, I was always like this, and to I think basically kind of rewrite their personal histories so that, and I think one of the effects of this is that it veils more adult motivations for transition, which I think very likely in play. And it also leads to the enlistment, and this is something that Corey has written about a lot of like, and that we've talked about before on the podcast, enlisting young boys as like your vicarious, you can live out vicariously your transition fantasies through them. And I really thought that that was what was happening. And one of the things that the four of us were texting about was, is the way that we resolve this in the US going to be that we just throw young effeminate boys to the wolves to save everybody else? Because like I don't think this is appropriate for anybody.
Well, and Leor did acknowledge he said astutely that's probably this is probably where the debate is going. So we need to talk about the boys, because
Yeah.
it began with boys in mind. It began with, oh, adult trans women are not faring well. This is the Dutch clinicians were observing. They're suicidal. They don't have a high quality of life, and it looks like it's because they cannot pass as women. So let's arrest these boys' puberty and medically engineer them into simulacra of the opposite sex so that they can be happy when they're adults. The problem is who are these kids going to be when they're grown up and predicting the future? But that was who they had in mind, right? What, Eliza? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and Brianna was like, well, you can tell, like you can just tell. Leor was like, how can you tell if 80 or 90% of these kids are going to desist and they're just going to be, gender not conforming, or maybe they're going to be gay in adulthood. How do you tell which ones that you don't sacrifice all the other ones? And Brianna was like, oh, you can just tell. Like you can just, it's just different. Like you can just tell. Just crazy talk.
There are any number of detransitioners that we already know and who will certainly come out in the future of boys who were effeminate and did start transition at a young age, just as Brianna advocates for. And then they get into their 20s, their growth has been stunted, and they have the realization that they have been lied to about what they can attain through transition. And instead of continuing to live in a lie, they want to recognize the reality of their sex and live in the sex role that is according to their sex. So Brianna does not think that these cases exist, or that they're so minor that they shouldn't be considered as part of determining policy. Brianna might say, well, for every one of those, there's 100 people like me who would have killed ourselves if we hadn't been able to do those. I really think it's noxious to keep bringing up this suicide or self-annihilation aspect of we should do this policy because people like me would die without it. I find that extremely noxious.
Agreed.
But the fact that these detransitioners are happening, and that we know that one of the reasons that people do not detransition is because there's a massive it's a lot easier to transition because there's all sorts of organizations around that will help you do it. There's a lot of people who will affirm you, and if you try to detransition, it's very difficult to get out. So we know that there's people who would detransition if
But
they
Brianna
could.
doesn't know any detransitioners.
According
Well,
to,
that's Brianna just blocks people.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted,
Jamie,
Jamie.
you're muted.
I had not been blocked by Brianna until I pointed out at the end of the debate. I tweeted and said, Brianna just said, I don't know any detransitioners, when Brianna and I had a one-on-one conversation about my ex and directly about Roxanne detransitioning. I
Mhm.
mean, clearly it's disingenuous. There's another challenging issue with the utilization of one individual's story as if it is the way to create policy, though. So, what Brianna wants to do is just, there was no debate about overarching data, stats. It was just, this was my horrific story, pity me, and we should transition people because of it. And
100%.
what
Mhm.
was missing and what we all miss. I mean, I'm the same way, but all of us as humans, when we are looking back in retrospect, we remember things in a way that fits our narrative and how we want to present ourselves as adults. And so when Brianna is talking about, I just wanted to play with Barbies and talks vaguely about their mom like yelling at them, or you know, maybe even kind of vaguely talking about what might be almost in a trauma kind of outcome. What Brianna does not readily point out is that he was also adopted, was adopted at a very young age, has a family situation and a family dynamic where, I'm an adoptive parent. We know that there are different things that you
Mhm.
have to do to overcome early childhood trauma, to have bonding with an adoptive child, to uh, also, Brianna will say, but doesn't go into, was growing up in Mississippi, experienced intense homophobia. Like there's so many, like,
Mhm.
if I was assessing this person from a clinical standpoint, I would say this is a person who has a significant amount of early onset childhood trauma, potentially is simply a gay male who experienced intense homophobia in childhood and found transition in adulthood to be a pathway out of ever really addressing that early childhood trauma.
And to Brianna's credit, Brianna did talk about growing up in Mississippi, did mention being adopted and ha having the relationship with her family fall apart after she came out as
He
trans, right?
does say that, but then he also will not say that there's multiple pathways into
Well,
this belief, and that that he could have experienced a different pathway forward that did not include medical transition, and
right.
that a different pathway
Yeah.
forward might have led to a different kind of lifetime outcome, because in retrospect, he cannot go there.
So
But then,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
but he's saying like things like, "Oh, I've had so much facial reconstruction surgery that half of my face is um like
Paralyzed or whatever.
paralyzed." I mean, like, is like from a clinical standpoint, again, I am seeing a person and I'm saying this had a negative outcome. This was a negative outcome. Who paid for all of that surgery? Brown is going to say, well, I had health insurance. Well, it was pooled, so we all paid for it. I mean, like, there's all of these elements to this
Mhm.
where it's like, if you want us to just take your personal story as the way to judge this, well, I can clinically tell you your personal story does not stand up as a success story, and it should not be why we should transition anyone else.
Yeah, and there were pretty blatant times when Leor would bring up something that was challenging that Brianna would really try to shut it down by like, I would die without this.
Yes. It was all about, he said you're N. You're the only person, where I'm talking about studies, I'm talking about evidence, I'm talking about what we have, what we've looked at, what we've
Yeah.
seen, data, for what little data we have, and studies that have done, but also systematic evidence reviews of studies that are, provide data. And you're telling me, I mean, Brianna must have said a million times, well, not a million times, but a number of times, oh, I know them. I know I know so many trans people who did this. I know so many trans women who did this, and they're hot and they pass. I know so many trans women who started hormones really early and they're super happy and they have great sexual function. It's always like I know and this and that and so on. And
Mhm.
then I don't know any dead transitioners. I mean, go fuck yourself. So here's the thing with Brianna blocked me on Brianna blocked you today. Brianna blocked me a while ago on Twitter because I said there's no clinical test. This is what I said. There's no clinical test to determine which kids gender dysphoria is going to persist in adulthood and whose isn't. That's what got me blocked. And here's the thing: when we talk about applying our own
That was rude, Ben.
what me saying that.
I'm kidding.
I know I'm an asshole. I'm a total asshole for pointing that out. It was really ridiculous, and I deserve to be blocked. And I should have
Yes.
actually been community noted, and I should have
Right.
been banned from the platform. Really,
Right.
is what
Right.
should
Shame
happen.
on you.
I know. So, we all can talk about, and that's a good point, Jamie, about like looking at our own experiences and seeing how they apply. Because Leor did mention me last night, and he said, "Look, talk to these, talk to Andrew Sullivan, you talk to
Mhm.
Ben Appel, these, folks who have talked about and said, if I were coming up now, I would likely be affirmed as a transgender girl because I was so effeminate. Because now that's just speculation. I cannot say and I acknowledge that. I cannot say." If I'm talking with Brianna and I'm saying, Brianna, you transition as an adult and you are certain that young boys who were like you should be able to transition earlier. I don't know what you're saying, like you're happy, but also you're not happy, so you would be happier if you were doing this. Applying that, and for me, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, uh, I think that I'm a different outcome, and my endocrine system is intact. I still have my back. Haven't had to undergo
Mhm.
all those surgeries that we pulled to pay for. My half of my face isn't paralyzed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, my argument is stronger. Mine wins, and why? Because I am not recommending a course of treatment that is not backed by evidence. Okay, and I'm not recommending a course of treatment that gives drugs to healthy bodies. You do not win. You lose that argument. Mine is stronger. You can say to me, but you don't know your experience if that maps onto kids. You do not know that either. And what you are proposing is to chemically castrate them, or not, because apparently she doesn't believe in puberty blockers, but to essentially chemically castrates them because estrogen and testosterone blockers, she says, oh, no puberty blockers, but at 14, if they're still dysphoric, we
Anti-androgens.
can give them, they're anti-androgens. So that is a chemical castration. I mean, Alan Turing was chemically castrated with a form of estrogen, if I'm correct. So it's bullshit. My argument is stronger. My argument wins. You don't have it. You lose. You should shut up.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
I said good day.
Okay, can I ask a bigger question? Okay. So this debate, I think, was between Leor, Brianna Wu, and this audience. And the audience. So Brianna and Leor are so in it that they're already where we're at, which is we're ready to talk about the boys because we have already, where Brianna, Leor, and probably all of us agree, we're already like, no girls need to transition and nobody who's non-binary needs to transition, right? Brianna agrees with that, Leor agrees with that, all of us agree. Corey, do you agree with that?
Well, it's motivated reasoning, isn't it?
So
What do you mean on Brianna's part?
Yes.
I was going to say, I said, yeah, last night, Brianna did. I have no idea what Brianna's going to say to tomorrow. But yes, you're right, Jamie. Continue.
But what Brianna's tried to put forth is I'm the moderate position. We only really need to talk about the boys. The girls can wait to get tea. If they want to pass, they'll pass later. And the non-binary people, yeah, whatever. We all agree. Most of our listening audience probably agrees. Brianna and Leor agreed. The people that were sitting in the room do not agree with that at all. And
Yeah.
so, how is it? Who were we? Was Leor successful in talking to the audience? So that's part of my question. Do we, by the questions that were asked, still think the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room, the people who really are going to hold on to this till the end right now are these 18 to 24-year-old young women
Mhm.
who all think that they need testosterone. And they were so fragile. The thing about their questions in the Q&A part is that I don't even know that we can have a debate with them because they're so fragile. Half of what they were saying was, I sat in this room and it was so
And you
violent
really hurt my feelings.
that my feelings are not being respected. And I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with the 18 to 24-year-old women in this country?
Yeah.
I'm
Glad
not
to-
allowed to ask that.
Yeah.
Why are you not allowed to ask that?
Man, we can't say those things.
Mm.
Men are not.
I'm allowed to say that, but
You can say
can't?
it. No, men can't
Mhm.
say that thing. That.
Oh,
It's verboten.
wait, I'm interested in this.
No.
Yeah, I thought we
We're,
just
we're
described
being
it as
facetious. We're just joking around. But for a man to say that women are crazy and that, 18 to 24-year-old women are going to be the ones that are going to be locked into this the longest is not the best look. But it's probably
Okay,
true.
then I'll say it
Yeah.
because, like,
Yeah.
But it's true, and I agree. I'll say it. I don't care. I say it. I say it in my book. I say,
but that's the thing that was so hard is because
yeah.
these young women in the audience, I I think we've turned this whole generation of girls into like they can't even handle anything.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there was so when the trumpet came in, someone in the there was a trumpet in or trombone or whatever it was. Leor is talking about. He gets to the point, and I think it was the point exactly where he has all this evidence. It's just data, and he's just talking about you know And he got to the point where he said, like, according to our estimates, there have been over 5,000 top surgeries for minors, or double mastectomies for minors, or even just modifications because some girls do not get their entire breast removed. They do partial for non-binary, whatever.
Mhm.
And he said, but according to estimates, that's what we've seen. That's what we know, at least that. He said, but that's likely a very conservative underestimate. That's when the trombone came in. The trombone comes in and interrupts, and this went on for a very long time, and Brianna was embarrassed, Leor was embarrassed, everybody was like, oh my God, and what are you doing? This is ridiculous. I'm sure folks in the audience were excited for it, especially those young women, thinking that, but it's so bizarre to think that yes, this is a strong argument to blast a trombone when you're talking about something that I can't argue with. It's the
Mhm.
it's the it's the it's the most telling thing. But we get to these women. One of the last one who spoke, who was from Britain. I am. Do you know what the detrans rate is? I think she said 0.047%. You're welcome. And I'm like, okay, whoa, what are you talking about there? Leor was like, I'm really curious to hear where you got your data. But anyway, and then she starts reading off, you know why? You know what's problematic about it? This is why. And these are all the trans people that have died since 2000, and then starts reading names of people that have died. It's like you're not dealing with adults, you're not having an adult conversation. Jamie, you said these are the folks we have to worry about. You think they're going to be the holdouts and the people that hold on to it the longest. I agree with that. I also think it's going to be
Well,
the crazy moms who
yes,
have
it's
like
the
the young
crazy
kids.
The
mom.
moms.
Yeah, who are like, I have two non-binary children, and I told them that puberty's coming, and they're terrified, and if they don't, so now the puberty blockers, they just want to die. So anyway, I
And
think those are the
dads.
crazies, but I don't think they can be reasoned with, to be honest. I think that they're brainwashed and they need deprogramming and that they need something beyond from what I can offer them because you cannot offer them facts. You cannot offer them evidence. There's no reasoning. They require a massive psychological intervention. What do you guys think?
I have a
I
thought
can't
experiment.
just shake them.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. What's your thought experiment?
So suppose you have 1,000 people.
Okay. I have 1,000 people.
All right,
Are we,
just
I feel
is
just
like
this,
go
am I
I
having
listen.
feel
deja
like
Just
I
go
know
vu?
where
listen
this
to
is
the last
going.
episode.
Yeah.
Just go listen to the last episode.
Yeah, okay.
You're
So
not going
so
to be
you're
able to
saying,
convince everybody.
Maybe
well,
two
what,
episodes ago. Yeah, I mean, Corey, you're saying like we just have to go around them,
yeah,
basically.
we
Like,
can't
Well, it's
worry
not
about the
not around them. We have to
beat them.
like every person that you convince is is on the margin. They're waiting to understand better before they make a decision. Those are the people that we need
mhm.
to convince, not the people who have made the decision, not and certainly not the people who have deep spiritual certainty about the issue. We need it's the people who are uncertain that need to hear more perspectives before they make up their mind.
Right.
And those
Yeah,
aren't the people who are playing harmonicas or trombones while Leor is speaking.
Right.
Those people need to be
right. So the
dragged out
audience
of the
in the room is not
auditorium.
the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the
But
end of my college,
let's hope there were maybe two or three, there could be one or two or three reasonable college folks who were like, "Oh, I really had no idea. I did not know that." Especially
yeah,
his argument about, well, what is gender? It's stereotypes. That's the only, when we whittle it down, what are we talking about? We're talking about affirming stereotypes, typical representation of male and female. That's what this is. Eliza, go ahead. What were you going to say?
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say at the end of my college career, the LGBT center on campus introduced like the safe space playroom with like the pillows and the stuffed animals and the coloring books, and I guess that might have been a more appropriate venue for some of these people, although I I'm still kind of impressed that they went, even though they had temper tantrums at the end during the Q&A.
Totally. And they
Wait,
sat
did
through it.
I think that they
I
went
don't
though.
know. I mean, I, like,
Did they go because Brianna was there though?
They had problems with Brianna too. They
I
called
know
out
they
Bri.
did, but did they
right.
go because they were like, oh, there's a
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
if
Brianna's
it
mean,
was
I'm
hated.
guessing that they
Leor,
went so that they could say something at the end, and
yes.
that they maybe didn't listen to anything before that,
Yeah,
except
because they had
that
notes. They
someone
had a
sounded a little
speech
sharp.
prepared. It was as if they were doing an Oscar acceptance speech. I mean, they pull it out and they're looking like,
Yeah,
I mean, this was a very choreographed moment.
yeah.
help me though in my own processing how to like deal with these girls. Like I just try to have so much compassion and empathy, and I'm getting to the point where I'm just angry and annoyed. And I just want to be like, do you see yourself?
Hmm.
Like, do you see, like, I just want to hold up a mirror to them. You're like, I'm non-binary and I cannot handle your violent words. And I'm what the
Yeah,
I'm embarrassed for them, but I'm also like embarrassed for our society, like how we've done
Mhm.
this, like coming of age, being like women empowerment. Like I'm just so
you're not alone. I think that there's probably so many listeners right now being like, yes. They're doing the snap. They're like, if they're snappers.
but I
Actually,
don't know that mocking them and being mad at them is going to reach them either. So I
you
guess it's just
Corey's
you
like, don't
don't
have to reach them.
yeah, you don't have to reach them. So here's the people who you should be persuading, if I say you, but I mean us, is if anybody's paying attention to those weirdos and uh, accommodating them, that's the word that I want. Not paying attention. Anyone who's accommodating them those are the people that we need to talk to. Like, you don't. Why are you letting somebody play a harmonica in here? What's wrong with you? Why are you
Yeah.
tolerating people who are behaving like this? So we can't do anything about the people who are so far away from sanity, that they can't be pulled back by us. But what we can do is we can pressure the people who are accommodating them. Stop treating adults like babies. That's actually, there's a good motto. Stop treating adults like babies.
Yeah.
Stop treating adults like children.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say I was quite confused. How did a large brass instrument walk into that space and nobody was like, hey, that's a great idea. Sure, bring your trombone. Like, what? Who let them walk in with it?
Well, they might have thought they were coming from like band practice or school, but you know what I mean? I mean, kids on college campus, kids carry around all kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to judge. I carry around a trombone.
Okay, so stop treating adults like babies.
Stop treating adults like babies. And it's we can't fix the babies directly, but maybe we can fix the adults who are accommodating the babies. And
Yeah.
this is really not to go into other topics here, but this is really what's happening on the college campuses with these protesters.
Yeah.
They're acting like babies. They're not acting like adults who are trying to find common ground. Okay, I'll say this about Leor and Brianna. I don't like Brianna's approach at all or argument or anything, but there's an example of two people who are trying to behave like adults to try to solve something or try to understand something. That's not what these young people are doing on who are interrupting or who are protesting on the campuses. They're not acting like adults. What they're trying to do is bring a temper tantrum, a toddler mentality, and there's adults who are accommodating it.
Yeah.
And we just, sorry if it's called conservatism. I don't think it is. I think it's just called being a grown-up. But we don't have to put up with that garbage.
So this reminds me what you're saying, like about the college level protests. So I have a 16-year-old who went to apply for his first job. I happen to know the supervisors and everything, and the supervisor called me and she said,
Mhm.
Jamie, I just need to make sure we're really clear. You can't come to the interview with your kid. And I was like, what
Oh my God.
the hell are you talking about? And she was like, the last like 3 kids that she had interviewed, the parents came and tried to sit in the interview with their children. And I said to her, I was like, my kid is applying to be a lifeguard. And I said, oh my God, if he cannot get through this interview on his own, he should
can't
not
be a
be a
lifeguard.
lifeguard. Like, what? Like, what has happened to this world? And she was like, oh, thank God. She's like, I have to like argue with these parents. I was like, what
That's
the
insane. And
hell?
like it should be embarrassing. It should be mortifying for the teenager.
No,
Like
they
that's
want
the
their
developmentally
parents to
appropriate
sit
reaction
here.
is like, yeah, that's crazy.
Okay, but Corey, serious question though. I I want to treat these adults like adults, but I also want to stay kind and I don't want to just mock them and I just want to be so mad at
You
them and make
you
fun of
don't
them.
have to mock them. You can just say your behavior is not appropriate. I'm not tolerating it. You can set your own boundary. I am not
Mhm.
tolerating your behavior. This is you are mistreating me with your behavior. It is not appropriate behavior. It's not respectful to anybody else. Like this is it's crazy, but this is like how you I say how school age children are spoken to when they're misbehaving.
Yeah.
You cannot have a tantrum because you're not getting that toy today. You're not allowed to have a
Right. We're
tantrum
not
in the
doing this right
store.
now. We're doing this
You
other
can-
thing.
That's right. You're not having a tantrum because you're not getting that toy.
Yeah.
And that's basic parenting. We're gonna have to parent adults who did not get this from their own parents.
Okay. So we need to completely restructure parenting and walk people out of a cult.
Well, yeah, and the with treating them like adults. I mean, this is endemic to our society.
Yeah.
I mean, that I don't think that's a hyperbole. I
No, I
mean,
don't think so at all.
this starts with the parents, but when I went to Columbia, people have heard me talk about this a million times, but I was in my 30s and I went and Liza, you were talking about at your college, the snacks and the crafts and stuff like that. I write about this in my book. I go to this this information session for LGBT groups, on campus. And I'm my first semester freshman. Trump is just in office the first time, and I'm ready and raring to go. Hashtag resist. And I go, and they're in their PJs, and they are
Yeah.
literally have the crafts and the games and all of this stuff. And their activities they were planning were decorating posters for their dorm rooms. And I'm like, whoa, this is first of all, these kids, wow, holy mother. I mean, I know I'm older, but whoa. And so, but when I was in my past life, I was a hairstylist and I saw this for years. I saw this in the 2000s, and I would have young people, teenagers, boys, especially boys, actually, a lot of boys, they really were like, just their moms were right there. And, I would say if I'm cutting someone talking and I'm like, oh, you have finals this week? Yeah. Oh, what do you have? Yeah, you have finals tomorrow. Oh, what are you studying for? Hey mom, what final do I have tomorrow? What do I have tomorrow? And this is a 16-year-old kid. And oh, you have that, and I'm thinking, that's bizarre. I mean, I
That is bizarre.
you know, I I did all of it on my own. I mean, all of the college preparation, applying to colleges, senior essays. I did everything. I had a job at 14 and then 16, and I was working in a restaurant and I was paying a car bill. And I mean, did I do it perfectly? No. Was I just this beacon of stuff? But I did. And I supported myself and I grew up and couldn't wait to have that independence, and it's not the same. And so kids coming out of that want colleges and all of the
Mhm.
spaces that they're in, whether it be the workplace or the college, to be extensions of their bedrooms. They want it to be extensions of their childhood homes, and they want that dynamic, and they recreate that dynamic on these campuses and in their homes. So what do? The administration becomes mommy and daddy, and the faculty at schools
Mhm.
becomes mommy and daddy. And mom is the faculty, dad's the administration, or vice versa. And they pit them against each other when they want something. So, oh, and you have to make this a safe space for me. Oh my gosh, this person hurt me. That they want to make it so that everybody is accommodating to them. It's horrible, and it is embarrassing, Jamie. Like you said, you're embarrassed for them, and you feel sad, and you're also like, look at yourself. And
Yeah.
it's crazy. And people will say, oh, this isn't representative of all of them. It certainly is not. It's certainly not representative of every single person on campus. Young people, but guess what? The young people who think these things and see these things, they have to keep them to themselves, and they stuff them down, and they're terrified of misstepping, and they're looking around and they're thinking, whoa, you know, whoa, really? What's going
Mhm.
on here? But they have to stay quiet because it's the babies who are in charge.
Yes.
On this note, should we go to our favorite grown-up things that are not gender
Okay.
related?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You go first.
Oh, I'm gonna say my favorite grown-up thing that grown-ups get and kids don't. I love a good gin and tonic with a lime. And I just finished watching a Hulu series called We Were the Lucky Ones about the Holocaust, and it was really good.
Okay.
Grown-up things.
There you go.
Perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Who else wants to go?
Corey, what do you got?
Well, this is just grown-up stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're
Doesn't have to be. It's just whatever.
doesn't have to be.
Just non-gender
Wow.
related.
Well, I got some new video games I'm really excited about playing, and a fully articulated action figure from my favorite anime, and some cool new stickers for my sticker book.
Big week.
Ben,
Hey, I'm all about stickers. I am all about stickers. I've always been about stickers.
yeah,
I
who
had the
here
sticker
collected
book.
stickers?
No, no. Some child put Ninja Turtle stickers all up and down my handrail last night, and I'm pissed. I hate stickers.
Well,
You
you don't get
know
stickers to put
which
them
child?
on things.
No, I
You
don't
get
know
stick.
which child, and they're all over the handrail.
Oh, I still have my sticker collection from, I mean, My
Did you
Little
have scratch
Ponies
and sniff?
to, and I didn't have so many scratch and sniff. No, it was more about the aesthetic of it, the look, the,
Okay.
you know, whether, you know, whatever it was. But oh, I love stickers. Yes, I'm with you on that. Shout out to stickers. What about you, Eliza?
Um, uh, my adult thing of the week is watching Fleabag like 10 years after everybody else, and it's really great.
Oh,
Love me some Fleabag. That's a very excellent show. Have you all seen
It's
that?
really good.
Nope.
Oh, it's
But
outstanding,
I
Corey. Have you
love that
seen
you
Jamie,
raised the roof.
it? It's
you,
outstanding. I watched it twice. It's only 2 seasons of it on Amazon Prime, right? And it's so funny and brilliant.
yeah, 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 it's great.
Did you
Highly
finish the whole thing
recommend.
yet?
Yes,
Yeah.
sadly.
Did you think
I
season two was
actually,
better than season one or what?
I think season two was better. I actually started watching it on the plane and watched all of season two, but it didn't say what season it was, and I kind of like it was believable that it had just like really leapt into it. Um,
Mm.
Did you watch it out of order?
it did, but
Yeah.
it was great.
Shout out to Fleabag.
Yeah.
I've been watching old movies and watching Audrey Hepburn
Yeah.
flicks. You know,
Which
the
ones?
old movies. The one that I just watched was Paris When It's Sizzling.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It was considered, it was like panned by critics when it was made, and it would just trump anything that's come out in the last 10 years. It's funny, it's clever, it has a lot of in jokes, a lot of back references. It's designed to appeal to thoughtful adults, even though it's still sort of trash. It's still funny.
I'll have to check that out. I love those. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and Butterfield 8. I watched that recently with Elizabeth Taylor. If you've ever seen that, Call Girl Manhattan,
Mm-mm.
very good. All
No.
right, so let's get going. And you know, I think for our listeners, I'm gonna have the links to the uh
Debate.
yes in the show notes. So if anybody wants to watch it and hasn't seen it, I bet you some people already have, but if they haven't, watch it because I would love to hear what people's responses are and reactions to that. But whatever else you have to say, please keep your comments coming. We really appreciate it. And that's it, right?
Yep.
And if you've made it this far into this episode, would you please make an angry comment underneath about using wrong sex pronouns for Brianna Wu all throughout this episode? Oh, wait, you already did. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You're way ahead of me.
No, but what I think we demonstrate is it is okay that people use different, it's okay. We can get along and we can know who we're discussing and yeah.
Next
100%.
episode on informed dissent, reacting to comments.
About wrong sex pronouns.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
All right.
Okay,
Bye.
bye guys.
Bye.